everybody, this is Brandon, the ApprenticeEwok, and I want to thank you for checking out the second episode of the Ewok Adventures Podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about some of the reasons I believe the High Republic could be one of the most exciting eras in all of Star Wars, and how great it could be for an entry point into Star Wars novels for casual and new fans. I want to preface this by saying I was initially skeptical about the whole thing when the project was announced. There seemed to be so much anticipation built up around Project Luminous, and I feel like so many people were let down when it was announced that it would be this publishing project, the High Republic. I understand many fans complain about things just for the sake of complaining, but I wasn't expecting anything like the High Republic either when they were announced. There were so many other project rumors, and I really thought about my initial reaction and decided, you know what, no matter what this project will be, I'm going to give it a chance and just see where it takes me. So I've been really tired of the parts of the fandom that don't want to see anything new or even try to give something a chance. So I decided to pre-order everything from the High Republic as it was available, at least the first wave, just to check to make sure that it's something that I was interested in. So I waited nervously for them to come out, and I had some concerns, especially when the project was delayed, the distribution of it, due to the pandemic. I was really looking forward to, I believe it was in August or September when they were supposed to come out, and then it was pushed off a couple months. So that was concerning to me, but then I was like, yeah, you know what, I bet the pandemic is causing a lot of issues for a lot of different projects. So I let this become a learning experience for me, and I took that time to learn a bit more about the creators that were involved with this new era and see some of their other works. I got even more excited for the High Republic by doing this because I got to see how big of fans the people are that are working on this. So I decided to forego all teaser chapters too, for any of the releases for the High Republic projects. I wanted everything to be completely new to me on my first read through, so those were just some of my first thoughts, and I want to cover everything that has released so far. I'm recording this on January 30th, so in just a couple of days we'll have Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. So I want to just cover the things that we have out that released in January, and that would be Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, The High Republic #1 by Cavan Scott, and A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland, and The Great Jedi Rescue. So obviously I'll start with The Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. I want to start by saying I was eager to read this because I was so used to seeing Charles work with Star Wars comics, and just recently I had read the Darth Vader Dark Lord of the Sith comics and The Rise of Kylo Ren. So just seeing what he did in those comics with characters and the way he used them and they developed, it got me super excited to read this book. So I waited not so patiently, and then I got the book, and it was really nice because I was in my quarantine period. My mom tested positive, and then I tested positive for COVID. So it was I don't want to say perfect timing, but it was nice to be able to just sit down and read those books without any other distractions. So I wasn't able to get an advance copy, and my goal is to be on the list of people who receive those copies for reviewing. I toyed around with starting a novel review podcast, but as you can see, just a couple of the episodes of my podcast will focus on that. So that's my goal, is to eventually be one of the people who receives those copies. So like most other Star Wars fans, I waited not so patiently for it to arrive on my door. So when I did get my copy, I immediately went to work on it. And it was really cool because I didn't set the book down until I finished like the first third of the book and decided I need to go to bed. So the first third of the book was really exciting to me, and the way that Charles Soule like curated the whole story and shows the Great Disaster from the different points of view was really, really cool to me. I thought it was really nice that they let us get to know some of the characters in the beginning. And I thought the Legacy Run was a cool name of a ship to start off the era. But I didn't realize that the destruction of the Legacy Run was what the Great Disaster was. So the way that they made us get interested and care about some of those characters, only to have these things happen to them. And yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't even really catch it right away that that's what was going on. So it didn't seem like many other stories where they shrug off the deaths of minor characters, or shrug off things that happen to them. It was really nice to see them say these are refugees, they have a place in our story, but here's this bad thing that happened to them. And then the Jedi eventually realize, hey, these aren't things that we need to destroy, they're people we need to save. So I thought that was a cool addition. So one of my favorite things is the way that the characters were introduced and to see their initial reaction to the Great Disaster. My only real issue is that there were so many Jedi and Padawans to learn, especially since this is the first book, and it's a new era, so the characters aren't connected to the ones that we have seen on screen yet. I think it would have been a really good idea to have like a cool art insert with the characters and how they appear in order throughout the book. I know for new fans it would help for, well, I mean really anybody, because the era is new to everybody. I caught myself having to go to the website and look to give myself an idea, to remind myself this is who they're talking about. But having Jedi of all different species is really cool, and having the unique different names helps with it. And it expands the universe for me. It's not just humans or the common species, like Wookiee Jedi, Trandoshan. I thought it was really, really cool to see one of Bossk's species as a Jedi, and he's one of my favorite characters. So I'd say Skier, Buryaga the Wookiee, and Loden Greatstorm the Twi'lek are a couple of my favorites. And I find it really heartwarming that Buryaga the Wookiee's master learned Shiriwook to communicate with her Padawan. I thought that was a really nice detail, and I get that, how else would you have somebody communicate with their Padawan if they didn't speak their language? But I just thought that was a nice touch. So I think they have done a good job, all of the authors so far. I know we only have 2 books and then a comic and then the children's story, but I feel like they're doing a good job of making the characters seem great, but there are so many that I don't feel like we can spend enough time getting to know each one. So I felt that was a little bit rushed, but that makes me appreciate what Charles Soule is doing even more, because he has this huge task of kickstarting this whole thing and getting people interested in these characters. And let me tell you, I have fallen in love with these characters. And I know some people are like, they're, they don't seem that important. They seem way too powerful. I say just give it a chance. You might find a couple characters that you really like. So that leads me to the villains, the Nile. And to me, they are so much more interesting than what they were initially described as, which was space Vikings or space pirates. And I can't really blame people for rolling their eyes and, kind of laughing at the idea that was presented, because, there's so much more than that. And that was one of my big concerns going into this, but it's a non-issue now because I really like the way that the villains are set up in this. And for anybody who's like, I don't know if I really want to read this, it's more like a crime syndicate that's just getting its feet under itself. There are interesting power struggles, the way that the organization is set up. There's deceit and backstabbing between members, even when it's not what's best for the group. And that made me really appreciate them. The Markion Rowe is really awesome. I liked what they did with his story and how they developed him throughout the novel. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he'll be used in the future. And I like the imagery that is used with the Nile. The storm. They bring the storm, and it leads to some really intimidating imagery used throughout. So they're not just space Vikings. They're not just space pirates. They give them time, and they'll develop into something way more than that. It's I feel like it was a disservice to the whole project to describe it in that way. So those are the couple issues that I had going into it, but now I really want to focus on the positives. And it was really nice to see the Jedi being what they were described as, the protectors of peace and the roles that we expected them to be in. They're keepers of the peace, and they're doing whatever they can to save the most lives possible just by listening to the Force, even if that means their own demise. And you see that with a couple of examples where early on these Jedi are willing to sacrifice themselves for others. And the powers used in this book are really cool. And I know some people are like, well, it's really not that far away in the time period it's not that far away from the prequel trilogy. So why are we seeing these powers when Yoda is already around? And I just let it ride out. Let's see it, because there are 3 phases to this big project, to the High Republic. And I think we're going to see a lot of really quick changes within the Jedi, and we'll see how the Jedi Council and, the whole, just Jedi in general changed and developed into what we saw in the prequels. So Avar Kriss is my biggest example, and her connection to the Force is really cool, and it's described as like music. She connects to like the song of the Force, and I really appreciate that, because Qui-Gon Jinn is my favorite, and all of the Jedi in this remind me so much of Qui-Gon Jinn, and that completely selfless and gave himself to the Force because he was listening to what the Force was calling for. And I can already see that shaping up in some of the Jedi, and it's pretty cool to see them listening to both the cosmic and living Force and using their own interpretations of the Force. It really makes me wonder what made the Jedi get away from that, especially since Yoda is around during this period. And I don't think it's anything to bash Yoda. I don't think the creators and the people who are telling these stories are doing it to retcon or disrespect or change anything that we've had, because the people who are writing the stories right now are huge Star Wars fans. I mean, Claudia Gray, who's going to be writing the next one that I'm most excited for, has written 2 of my favorite Star Wars books, and I mean, Charles Soule and Kevin Scott, they've worked on Star Wars comics, and it's not what people are making it out to be, and that's the biggest problem I have, is so many people weren't willing to give it a try. So, and that leads to another issue that a lot of people have, and they're like, well, it just, it's not connecting with me, and it doesn't feel very Star Wars. And, that's their opinion. But to me, the High Republic feels very Star Warsy. I know people are concerned about the overall aesthetic of it and how close it is to the prequels, but I like the way that it seems like they have it mapped out with the different phases, and I'm guessing the conclusion of the High Republic will be in the 3rd phase, leading to the Acolyte, the Disney Plus series, and that could be a really cool way to cap off this whole project and, leave a lasting connection to the Skywalker saga. So I really want to see how things change within this time period. But, I mean, we've got over 150 years during this era that we can see explored, and we're just scratching the surface. So I'm all for it. And I want this to be a very limited spoiler reasoning, because this is me not trying to convince you, but just giving you some reasons why I think, as a Star Wars fan or a new fan or a casual fan, whatever, to give these novels a chance. And part of that is the way that this novel is all wrapped up. The conclusion left me wanting so much more. I was lucky to read the High Republic comic, and then as soon as I got done with Light of the Jedi, I read Test of Courage. So I've had a lot of problems reading. I got a concussion, a pretty bad concussion, when I was playing college football, American football, and I've had a hard time reading physical books, and I wanted to get these in audiobooks, but I really wanted to have them for my collection because I like the artwork. And I have had no issue reading the physical copies, which absolutely amazes me, because I would sit there and try to read, and I'd have a hard time tracking the words, and it was frustrating because I love reading, and I felt like I couldn't read for a while. So the fact that these books, I was able to basically sit down and read them in, one or two sittings was really nice. Especially A Test of Courage. I read that all in one go. I started it and took a whole afternoon and read it. So I did make the mistake, and I want to urge anybody who plans on reading this or isn't thinking about it, read it in release order. I wasn't aware of that, so when I was partway through Light of the Jedi, I read the High Republic #1, and there are some spoilers that I wish I hadn't read when I was in the Light of the Jedi. So from now on, I'll be following the release order precisely, because I don't want any more spoilers like that. So just so you're aware. Which leads me to my thoughts on the comic. I had copies of both the original cover and the variant cover that has Yoda and Avar Kriss on pre-order, but they didn't arrive on release day, so I decided to get a digital copy, and I gave that a quick read. And I know some people were like, well, the way that they used a lightsaber doesn't really make sense, and it's these Jedi seem way too powerful, and it just wasn't that interesting. But I don't see that, and that's just me trying to be really positive and just enjoying things. But I really like the art style, and not just in the comic. I like the art style used on the different novels, and they've got the same base aesthetic for everything, but the adult novel versus the young adult novel and the junior novel and the kids book all have different art styles, and it was really cool to see each one, the different, I guess, like animation or drawing styles and stuff like that, or art styles, and the gilded beautiful gold mixed with like the wispy airbrush colors and everything. I think it fits perfectly for me. I know a lot of people tend to like the grit and dirtiness in their Star Wars, but when we got the original trilogy and then we went to the prequels, everything looked like it was kind of spit shined, and everything seemed newer, and but at the same time, you know, it's in the past, so we're going farther back in the past, but things look nicer. So it's like those things haven't had a chance to get weathered or anything like that. So I thought it fit really well, and it only makes sense because it is an era that's even further back. So I believe the first issue was a great starting point. It was really fun, and we got to see Skier the Trandoshan with his apprentice Keeve Trennis right away. And I love it when we get to see masters and their apprentices interacting and going on little missions, and the apprentices being able to prove themselves. So I thought it was, I'm still getting used to comic books because I just recently started getting into them. I read, like I said, I read the Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith comics. I read the Jedi Fallen Order, the Rise of Kylo Ren, the Darth Maul. So I'm just barely scratching the surface, but I'm really enjoying them. But it amazes me how short they are, and how much they actually show within that short period of time. So it always leaves me wanting more, which I like, but I don't like. I look forward to the rest of the issues, and instead of getting the physical copies, I'll be getting the digital on release day, and then maybe in the future when they do the trade paperback with the full volumes, I'll get those. But seeing the different panels and the art on them and the humor, and it seems like there's just enough details and visuals to satisfy me, which I feel is the point. It's, quick little stories. So I'm excited to see, what issue number 2 is going to be like. I know that also has Skier on the cover, but I want to read the High Republic Adventures as well. So I'm going in release order. So next up is A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. And like I said, I read it in one sitting, but I absolutely adored this junior novel. To me, the way I describe it, and I was telling my mom about this to see if she wanted to get into it, but she has a hard time with names of characters and places. So I don't know if this is the right fit for her. But I have talked to her about it a little bit, but I described Light of the Jedi is the big blockbuster movie where you have all these characters and a big action thing happens. But then these junior novels, like A Test of Courage, seem to be like the high production value episodes of a streaming show, where it focuses on a character or a small group of characters, and you get to see their story and learn about them and connect with them more deeply than you could a big ensemble cast of characters. So I really liked that, and I loved Jedi Knight Vernestra Rowe. I know some people, and it bothers me, some people are already calling her a Mary Sue because she seems super powerful at such a young age, and my response to that is, that's nice. She is very powerful, and she is seeing success and has already risen in the ranks of the Jedi. But in this book, she learns so much, and she does struggle. And she understands that she has a lot to learn, and she understands that she's struggling. And there are points in the story where she knows she's failing, and she almost loses a friend to the dark side. But she learns from that experience, and, I know people are bothered that she's becoming she's getting an apprentice, she's getting a Padawan. But I feel like both of the characters are getting to learn from both of their mistakes. And I think that they're going to do such a great job of taking these characters and developing them and carrying them over into future stories. I finished the book and I was sad because now I had to wait until Claudia Gray's novel came out. So, A Test of Courage is a really fun, quick read. I really like some of the additions. I thought the pacing of it was perfect for a junior novel. There didn't seem to be parts where it was like, okay, I'm struggling to get through this. It was, it started out pretty exciting. It got interesting. We had characters introduced, and then conflict. And it was nice to not have it be this huge universe-altering issue in this book. Each one of the books seems to be connected to the Great Disaster, and we see the fallout from it in all of these. But I feel like each one of these stories is going to have kind of their own separate conflict that is going to come up. So I'm really, really wondering what we're going to see from Into the Dark by Claudia. A Test of Courage was more about personal struggles and personal conflict, about loss and grief, which for a junior novel that is just starting out in this new era, I didn't expect it. There were times where I looked down at the page and I was just like, that is some pretty profound stuff that they're talking about. So I could go on about these, and I know I could be more detailed, but this isn't necessarily a review. It's me saying what I like and my thoughts of why you should read it. So I want to talk about The Great Jedi Rescue because I feel like it's going to get overlooked because it's a children's book. And don't overlook it. It's a cheap book that is it's cute. You get stickers with it, and I think the art style is fun, and it is just a quick little explanation of the highlights of Light of the Jedi. So if you have any kids that are into Star Wars, they'll get to see, Wookiee Jedi and, the different spaceships, and then they get to have stickers of it. And part of me wants to put my High Republic stickers all over things, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give the stickers to my niece and have her read the book to see if she's going to get excited about this. So don't overlook it because it's a kid's story. I think the Clone Wars and Rebels have been great examples of how you can't overlook something just because it looks like it's designed for kids. It looks like it's marketed towards kids, because the stories are so much better than just being passed off as a kid's story. So my final thoughts of the things that we have so far. I have been super impressed. I have loved the characters, the story, and the creators who have come together. I love watching, when they had the announcement and the High Republic show. I could watch behind the scenes on this. If they wanted to make it, I would watch it every week. The creators that they have working on it and this is, I'll give the examples of Cavan Scott and Charles Soule mostly because they're two creators who have been super positive on social media. They have interacted with fans. I've put a couple tweets out talking about the High Republic and how awesome I think it is, and those two have replied and thanked me for, the kind words and been super excited that fans are loving it. And I think it's amazing that Light of the Jedi and A Test of Courage have both been on the New York Times bestsellers list. It is amazing because I was worried that so much of the negativity of parts of this fandom would drag down this project, and it is already more successful than I thought it was going to be. The comics going into all the different reprints, the books selling out and people having a hard time getting their hands on them, and I mean, obviously national recognition for the New York Times bestseller list for multiple weeks in a row. I think that just is a testament to how much work was put in by these creators. And that's my biggest thing, is I gave it a chance because I trusted the people that were working on it. And it's okay to not like this. But before you come up with a reason why, just give it a chance. Use a credit on Audible. Go rent it, or not rent it, but go check it out from a library. Get a Kindle edition of it and just try to read it. And if you find yourself stuck, it's perfectly fine. You can watch reviews on YouTube, but I wouldn't just pass this off as a project that you might not be interested in, because I feel like for me, I waited and I didn't watch Star Wars Rebels or the Clone Wars because I was afraid of getting bullied and liking a show that was meant for kids. But going back and watching them, it's some of my favorite Star Wars. And I would hate to have some fan miss out on these stories just because they think it might not be right for them. So if any of the reasons why I have talked about this connect with you, go ahead and give it a chance. I really think this era is in good hands, and I think this era is going to connect to the Skywalker saga better than anybody is expecting, especially if it culminates and is capped off with the Acolyte. I think people don't realize how big this project is going to be, and that this is really the future for Star Wars. It is definitely bigger than I thought it was going to be with the 3 phases. It seems like, and all of the projects are doing this. It's that very, let's build up these characters, let's bring them together, and it's a very Marvel Cinematic Universe approach to it, which is what we're going to be seeing with The Mandalorian, with the Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic, all that kind of stuff. And, Marvel even had phase, 1, 2, 3, and then after Endgame. And we're going to see phase 1, 2, and 3 of the High Republic, and it's going to lead into the prequels. The Acolyte is, from what I've seen, it sounds like it's going to take place 50 years before The Phantom Menace. And that is going to pretty much lead us right into the era that we know. So, I think a lot of care has been put into this era because it's really the first thing Disney Star Wars right after the sequel trilogy, which, love it or hate it, or it's complicated. As a fan, I appreciate that they are putting this care into something after the sequel trilogy. So, and that's not a knock on the sequel trilogy or anybody who worked on it. I just really appreciate the creators and the stories that they have to tell. So, with that, there are a couple things coming up. In the immediate future, we have, within the next couple of days, we have Into the Dark, which is a young adult novel by Claudia Gray, releasing on February 2nd. Then we have Marvel's The High Republic issue number 2, also releasing on February 3rd. And then IDW's High Republic Adventures number 1 on February 3rd as well. So we've got things early February, and then it seems like we've got a little bit of a break. So, I mean, if you want to get caught up, you can get the 3 things that we have already, the 3 things coming out at the beginning of February, and then, give it some time. I am most excited for Claudia Gray's Into the Dark. And she has written 2 of my top 3 favorite Star Wars novels, with Master and Apprentice and Lost Stars. So I am absolutely looking forward to seeing the work that she will do in this new era of Star Wars. That pretty much concludes my mostly spoiler-free thoughts on the High Republic. And, this isn't me saying you need to read this because of this. It's as a Star Wars fan who has this perspective, this is why I think it's important and why I think other fans may like it. So if you could do me a favor and leave a like and a comment below about what you have liked most, or if you haven't read any of it yet, what you would like to see from this era, from this, from these projects, that would be awesome. And don't forget to subscribe. I'm really close to 600 subscribers, and I'm going to be more active with this channel than I have been in the past year. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm going to pump out consistent stuff, whether it's figure shorts, podcasts like this. I'm still trying to figure out how often I want to do these, what topics I want to cover, and then I'll be doing game streams. So I've got different content for, anybody who, might want different things from a Star Wars YouTube channel. So thank you all so much, and remember to be a spark of positivity. Alelu Tanav, which means celebrate the love. From the Apprentice Ewok, Yum Num.